Hello, and welcome to the Kreative Devices Mobile Podcast, a podcast created for all Kreative Devices users to tell their story and to help bring even more creative awareness to the world. Today, we're joined by the one and only Al-Karim. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, sir. And yourself?
I'm good. We finally made this happen. We've been planning this for a while now.
Yeah. I mean, like ships passing in the night, everybody stays busy, and staying busy is a good thing. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time to hop on this podcast. It's greatly appreciated. Obviously, I know who you are, and lots of other people do. But for those who may not, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do.
So my name is Al-Karim Powell Darrensburg. I am a fashion designer, recording artist, producer, um, in music and uh, Broadway stuff, film, fashion, music, and entertainment. Maybe that's the best way to put it. I don't know. There's so many things to talk about, but fashion, music, and entertainment, that's the basis of what I do.
Nice, nice. And how did you get started in that?
Oh, wow. Well, I sort of kind of fell into all of it backwards in a way. Initially, I wanted to attend FIT for college, but my parents didn't think that fashion design was good choice. So what I ended up doing was I only applied to one school to be spiteful to my parents. So I applied to Howard University. However, I had already received probably about 5 full scholarships to other colleges, and I didn't apply to the college that my parents graduated from, which is the one they would have preferred that I attend because I had my brothers were coming right behind me, and my sisters had already attended there, and my both my parents graduated from there. So anyway, I only applied to one school, even though I had been accepted to a bunch of schools, and I got an acceptance letter from Howard, and went there for music versus going to FIT for fashion design, which is what I wanted to do. So I ended up in
Mm.
Washington, D.C. in 1988, and I was walking across campus one day, and a complete and total stranger walked up to me and said, "Can you teach me how to model?" And I'm like, "Okay, why?" They's like, "Well, aren't you a model?" I'm like, "No, I'm not a model." I was like, I had no idea why they would have thought that, but it's the way that I carried myself. My mother was a runway model before we were born, but she also made clothes. So I grew up watching my mother make, clothes, like real clothes and everything.
Mhm.
She was always finely dressed. My grandmothers are all always finely dressed. So fashion for me was always around. Um, so at Howard, uh, that summer, I participated in a dance company, the Washington Institute of Dance, under the direction of the Dance Theater of Harlem. So I was a dancer. So I was doing that for the summer, and a young man that was part of the dance company, he did like the administrative stuff. He ended up becoming a business partner of mine eventually. But he said to me one day, he's like, "You should start a modeling agency." I'm like, why? He's like, well, you just should. He's like, because he's like, I can see you, I think that you'd be good at doing that. And people already ask you about modeling and stuff. So I started a modeling agency just because somebody said so. And from there, what I used to do is teach people how to model. I would get kids off the street, drug dealers. I turn people, literally turning people into models. Um, And then I had a photographer that would take the pictures. I would set up all the pictures, style them, style the people, set it up, and he would take the picture. So one day, he said something rude. I'll say it was rude, something rude to one of the models, one of the male models. But the young man was maybe he might have been like 14 years old, even though he looked like he was 19. You thought he was older, but he was like young. So when the photographer said what he said, he froze and wouldn't move because he didn't know how to react to what the photographer said. And I told the photographer, I'm like, that's it. I said, the shoot is over. I said, he's not going to move. He's not going to do anything. Like, he don't even know how to respond to what you just said. I said, and you really should not have made that statement. He said, I was just joking. I said, but you don't understand. I said, he's 14 years old. He's not an adult. He doesn't understand what you like. He was offended. So the next day, I told my business partner, who told me to start the modeling agency, what had happened. And he said to me, go buy a camera. I said, what? He said, go buy a camera. He said, you set up every shot, you train the models, you style the shoot. The photographer's only standing there snapping a button, like pressing a button. He said, go buy you a camera. It will do the work for you. He said, you already have the eye for it. I went and bought a camera the next day. And that started my photography career. The modeling stuff started because somebody said start an agency. And then I ended up uh I was doing makeup, but I didn't really know how to do makeup. But I ended up working at BET by walking into BET to go get a job. Like, I just wanted a job to work in their fashion department. Didn't know that that fashion department had only existed for 2 weeks before I walked in. When I, like, us growing up, I assumed that BET would have had a fashion department, but they did not. So I walked in 2 weeks after it officially opened and asked for a job at the front desk with their head of their department, and I got hired. So I ended up working in the fashion department. But before we could dress anybody, I would have to sit with the makeup artist for an hour because it took him about an hour to do each person's makeup or whatever. So I was sitting with him one day and I said, I want to learn how to do makeup. And he said, why? He said, you already know how to do makeup. He said, I've seen you do makeup. He said, I'm going to show you three things. Because he taught a class. I said, I'm going to take your class. He's like, you don't need to take my class. He said, I'm going to show you three things. He showed me three different things. He said, there. He said, you're a makeup artist. So pretty much all the stuff that you know me for, I literally fell into everything backwards. Not that I wasn't planning to get to those things, because fashion, I knew in second grade that I wanted to be a fashion designer. I knew, but nobody else could see that vision for me. I knew. So I felt like I was thrown off of my path for a couple of decades in actuality, because I didn't get back to fashion design until I was like 36 years old living here in New York. But so I did other stuff that I was good at. I am a musician, a producer, singer, a instrumentalist, all of that stuff, but that's not what I wanted to do per se. So it took me years to get back to designing clothes and being the fashion designer that I am. So did I answer the question?
Wow, you did. That was
Okay.
that's a serious story. I mean, that path is crazy. I mean, people only dream of being able to do the things that you've actually done, you know?
Well, my mother always says you're on a journey in this life by yourself. You're on your path. Nobody else can be on your path, and whatever is happening on it's your path. Um, when I was younger, I didn't understand a lot of the things that were happening to me. I didn't understand being on a path, like it never sunk in.
Mm,
So I was always not necessarily complaining, but I never could understand why stuff never worked out the way that I wanted it to. It never worked out. And my thing is, I just got very tired of it. And
mm,
it's like, okay, this just can't be real life for somebody, but the thing is, what I've learned as I've gotten older is that had certain things worked out, I would not
mm,
be where we are right now talking to each other. I would be somewhere else doing something else that possibly I was not meant to be doing. Like, I
mm,
tried to be a real estate agent. I took that test 3 times and missed it by 1 point every time. And the last time I took it, the gentleman said to me, he said, I would give you the point. He said, because you've been here 3 separate times. He said, I really want to give it to you. He said, but they just changed, and they literally had just changed the test to where it was graded electronically versus manually. He said, I can't even give you the point now. He said, because it goes through a machine to grade it. He said, I can't even give you the point. But like my mother said, maybe you wasn't meant to be a real estate agent. So I,
mm,
I, I look at life in that way. that whatever it is that you're doing or that you're in, that's where you're supposed to be, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent for you. And then always, I've always been the type of person to look for the good in anything bad that's happening. So every bad situation, there is, as they say, a silver lining. I think a lot of people never look for a silver lining ever. So everything is always just so bad. But anytime something bad happens, I'm like, well, what good was supposed to come out of this? And that's sort of how I just look at life at this point.
Wow. That's a very positive outlook. Yeah.
It's
And
hard,
it,
but
it's, I can imagine, but it,
yeah,
it does make a difference because
it does.
negativity just brings more negativity and it prevents you from achieving things. You have to keep a positive mindset even
Yeah.
through negative times in order to keep moving forward. That is very true. Wow.
Well, I speak at various schools every year for career days. So junior high school, and I teach at a couple of colleges here in New York. And but when I'm with the kids in junior high and high school, the first thing I normally say to the students, because I normally have classrooms full of children of color, the first thing I always say to them is, "Ain't nobody looking for you." And I say it just like that. Ain't nobody looking for you. I said, and I need for you to understand that statement, not in a bad way. I said, I don't want you to be offended by the statement, but I need for you to understand that when you go out into this world, ain't nobody looking for you. I've showed up in places they were not expecting me to show up. So they weren't looking for me and they weren't looking to hire me and they were not interested in hiring me. So I would get a no here, a no there, whatever. So, like when I was telling you about owning the modeling agencies, I had models I had one business partner in particular who modeled for me. He started out as a model for me, and he was very dark skinned Jamaican. Just, I always thought he was just flawless, like skin wise and his look. I liked his look. And I took him on a casting to a well known casting agency in Baltimore, D.C. area. And I shot his whole book. So I knew that his pictures and all of that stuff were what they needed to be. The lady opened the book up, she flipped through it, a couple of pages, and slammed it closed and said, "We can't use you. You're too dark. We can't light you." How do you not light a human being? How's anybody too dark? So that experience has, come with me all the way to where we are now. So when I talk to these kids, I'm like, listen, if you can get past no, 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 and be unaffected, you're going to get to the yes. But I can't have you shut down at the first no. That's why I
Hmm.
say to them, ain't nobody looking for you. And if you go in and already thinking they're going to say no to you, you're not going to be bothered. You know what I'm saying? You're like, okay, I wasn't supposed to be here anyway. Let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to get anywhere in life, you're going to hear a lot of no's, and you have to be persistent and
Yes.
be willing to keep going through all the no's until you get the yes. For, creative devices, the manufacturers that I talked to, I heard at least 200 no's before I got a yes,
See?
and it was my persistence that's, led me to someone who said, you know what, you're right. I like what you're doing. No one else is doing that. Let's make this happen. But if I had given up, like
Right.
everyone, like, not everyone, but like most other people might have, we wouldn't be here today.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So, yeah, definitely never give up. That's the lesson.
That is, yes, that's one of many lessons.
Yes.
There's so many lessons in just a day. Like, people don't even because they're never looking for them, they don't see them
Mm.
or don't realize that they're there. It's just like when you encounter people. They say you get at least 7 or 8 offers for something in a day, but if you're never looking for the offers, you don't know that you're being offered anything. So a lot of people miss opportunities because they're never looking for them.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's beautiful. Well, I would like to know, tell me about the camera that you started with and what other gear you started with
Oh
on your
my.
journey? Because I know it was different from back then till it is now.
So this is pre-computer. This is pre-digital. This is pre-cell phone. This is when right around the time when everybody was getting a pager. Uh, and then you have to go to a phone booth and call back whoever paged you because there was no such thing as a cell phone. Or actually, I was right there at the beginning of cell phones because I remember I had the big box one that you put in your car and
Hmm.
everything. But I was fronting. Mine never. It was never hooked. It was never hooked up. It didn't work. But it looked good in my BMW though. You see, you know what I'm saying? You know, hey,
Hmm.
so I started with what camera did I start with? I remember a Canon T90 manual camera, which was the top of the line camera at the time for any photographer that was going to say that they were a photographer. So I was able to buy one of those used from somebody, or it might have even actually it might have even been a gift. I'm not even sure. Probably my first set of cameras were Canon and Sony. Canon and Sony cameras are what I tend to use, and they were manual. It's all before digital was ever a thing. And I actually worked in a photo lab. It was one of my jobs that I took so that I could constantly process my film free of charge. So, I tried to line myself up to where I'm not spending all this extra money. Because what people fail to realize with manual cameras is you don't know what you're going to get until you get it. Like you don't get to go back and erase or change anything or look at it or be like, oh no, let's do it again. Like it's a guessing game until the pictures come back. You know what I'm saying? And for me, I've never been technical. And one of my very creative friends said to me one day, he said, you really should learn how to use your camera. He said, you have a phenomenal eye. He said, but imagine how much better your pictures would be if you actually knew how to work your camera. And that's been a fault of mine. It's like I sort of just rely on my eye and not all those set this, set that, apertures, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's cool, and I would advocate for. I always say to people, learn your equipment because the thing is, you're going like everybody doesn't have a talent for. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is, if you're going to go into anything, educate yourself about everything about what you're going into, meaning your equipment, as well. So yeah, I take my own advice.
All right. Uh, so for you, how has moving into digital cameras improved things?
Well, it drastically changed how I would do a shoot. Number one, remember I said I'm a makeup artist, a professional stylist, fashion designer, photographer. Like I can literally do all those things during the shoot or in the shoot. But the problem is, if you do 5 jobs, you're going to be so tired. By the time it comes around to actually doing the shooting, my eye's not going to be as great because I'm so tired from 45 minutes of makeup. Oh,
Hmm.
30 minutes of trying to get you dressed and styled and pinned and all of that. So when we
Hmm.
moved into digital, what it allowed me to do, number one, this is when Photoshop also came into existence. So I found myself not having to literally do makeup because I could just fix your features. I could fix your skin in Photoshop. I didn't. I can make you flawless without having to do 45 minutes worth of makeup. I could just press a few buttons and move a stylus and your skin is clear. So that helped. And then also with the digital cameras and all of that, you're able to see what you shoot in the moment. So if I didn't get what I wanted, I could erase it. Me personally, I don't erase anything. I save literally every picture that I've ever taken. I don't believe in getting rid of anything because one, I don't know if you're going to end up being really famous. So then, if I have I have pictures of you that nobody else would have ever had, makes it
Hmm.
makes it worth so much more for me. But also, I just don't believe in like everything is art. There's art in everything that I do. So I believe in holding on to all of my art. That's for me and
Wow.
everything.
So that means you still have those pictures of me from my younger music days.
I do.
Okay.
I, I do. I can literally dig them up. I have to find them, but yeah, they exist. They
Okay.
exist.
All right. I like to see that. I remember we did a photo shoot in Manhattan, me in a pinstripe suit with the
Yep.
hat on,
Yep.
looking real GQ. Yeah, that was nice.
I still have those.
Okay, okay, okay. So, we talked about where you started, what you were using, what you're using now, digital. Um, Technology is an amazing thing, right?
It is.
But the transition sometimes can be a little bit daunting. How did you find that transition?
So initially, I was using PCs. That's all
Mhm.
I was using because that was, when they first started with computers, you didn't have Apple in that sense or whatever. I was using nothing but PCs. But the problem for me is that because all of a sudden everything that I did was on the computer, I would burn out PCs like because I like unlike regular people who just use them to type up a little stuff and this like the photography, music stuff, the administrative stuff, or just being on it all the time, I would literally burn them out. Like I've owned so many PCs, it's not even funny. It really
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
But also, I'm not a technical person, like I said before, so I really didn't understand having more RAM or having extra this or extra that or processors. Like none of that stuff meant anything to me.
Yeah.
Sort of kind of still doesn't because I depend on people like you, who's the expert at what they do to explain to me what I need. I just tell you what I want, and then you'll say, "Well, these are your options," and then I go with the
Mhm.
expert's opinion on what the options should be. But yeah, initially it was all PCs. I switched to Apple because of the industry that I'm in. When the cell phones came and the iPads and all of that, my business partner said, for what you do, he said, I'm going to suggest that you switch over because it all packages up for you. You don't have to. Because another thing that I did not like doing, I sort of still don't like to do, I don't like taking my computer out of the house because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, anything could happen to it, and then there's all of your information is gone or destroyed or locked in or whatever. So that was one of the reasons he convinced me to switch over. Also, I was getting a lot of like viruses, having to constantly clean, and all of that stuff. And like I said, I'm not a technical person. So then I'll have to call somebody and be like, listen, can you fix all of this? Because I don't really know what's going on and
Mhm.
everything. I've gotten better nowadays because I've just been doing it so long and everything. So now I can go between PC versus Apple back and forth. And I feel like everything serves its particular purpose for whatever it is that you need it for and everything. So I'm happy that I'm well versed because I have friends and family who use some of everything, but they're not very computer savvy. So they'll
Mhm.
get stuck and then I have to try to figure out without seeing what the problem is over the telephone, trying to fix something that you can't see and trying to explain to them. Well, somebody actually has to be looking at what you're talking about because you can't seem to explain it, you know, to
Mhm.
enough for me to be able to diagnose what your problem is. But yeah, man, it's I guess you have to move along with the times and everything. And I think being able to go from I remember when I was how old were we? Let's see, we were living I had to be in elementary school, like sixth grade, maybe. I'm thinking sixth grade or something like that, sixth, seventh grade. My father bought the first computer home and it had a green screen and one game on it called Pong. And he's like, "Oh, let me show you something." So he sat us down, he turned it on, and he's like, this little thing here and this little thing there, and then this dot doing this. And he's like, I'm like, "What are you supposed to do?" He's like, "Hit the dot." I'm like, "Okay." So I did it for maybe 5 minutes, if that. And I said, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, who's going to sit here and do this? Like, this doesn't even make sense. Why would anybody want to do this? Fast forward, we all have a computer in our pocket. at this point, and people do nothing but play games. I like me personally. I don't play any games on my. I don't play games. Period. Like electronic games and stuff like that. It just never appealed to me and everything. But it was just so ironic to think back to having the very first computer in my house and being like, nobody's gonna sit here in front of this thing and not want to go outside and play. Like I literally like, no, I'm gonna go outside or I'm gonna go to my room and actually draw some pictures or something. You know. And now I'm like, you can't get people to stop looking at their phones and their computers.
Yeah, it's a very digital age today, and just like you, a lot of people went through that where they didn't really know much about computers and they were using PCs. And I hear all of these stories, and I hear a lot of them, and a lot of them are pretty much the same, where people use these underpowered PCs that weren't designed for what they were trying to do with them,
Right.
right? They just bought like a basic PC that could just go online, or send emails, and they were trying to do too much with them and it wasn't working, or they were going on these websites, they didn't know what they were doing and they were getting viruses. I've heard all of these stories as to why, but like with anything, it's when you don't know, you don't know, right?
Exactly.
And I know a lot of people that have switched over to other platforms like Apple, and they've had similar issues. Some people have had more luck. The good thing with Apple is, because everything is made for Windows, you have less of a chance of getting a virus, because more viruses were created for Windows. But the viruses for Apple are a whole different level. I mean, they're horrendous. I've seen a computer like wiped out, shut down. You can't even recover it. You're buying a new computer, replacing that hard drive, whatever. It's terrible. But
Well,
hopefully
yeah.
one day we can get rid of all viruses. It's wishful thinking, but I don't think it's going to happen. But it would be nice to not have to deal with that on any platform, right? But
Well, I feel like with the Apple product thing, it's like you're put in a box. You're literally put in a box. It's like, okay, if you buy this right here, this is all you're gonna get. And because you and I had spoken, and I had told you that one of my producers gifted me uh,
mm.
the MacBook Pro, and he's like, "Oh, just go down and pick it up." Okay, I'm like, hey, I was not mad. I'm like, I love a gift, but then when I got it, I didn't realize that as much as they keep upgrading whatever, it's actually a downgrade because you cannot open it up. You can't fix anything. You can't add anything. Whatever you buy it at is what it stays at. I can't add any RAM to it. I can't change this. I can't. I'm like, and that's not how I operate. I know what I do. And like you said, most people, they get something that's underpowered and don't realize that you can't do X, Y, Z. And I do appreciate the salesman at the store saying to me, he's like, don't put anything on the desktop. He said, put everything in your external hard drive to save the computer from overworking itself and everything. I think that was the best advice that I could get for it, for really for any computer, if you ask me, because it does weigh it down, slow it down, and all of that stuff. But if you don't have something that can process something fast enough, having all that stuff up there just really weighs it down. So I think that one piece of advice was great, but also in the same instance, you're putting your clients in a whole box and not explaining to them that, yeah, you ain't gonna be able to do nothing with this because you're gonna have to come back and buy an upgrade from us or a whole different computer or what have you. Versus like what you do, you know what I'm saying? You're like, okay, how much power you want? We can put in whatever you want, and you can build it however you want to build it and everything like that. So, you know, like I said, for me, I'm able to go back and forth, and everything serves its purpose for why I have it and everything. And I explained that to you when we talked about the laptop that I have from you.
Yeah, that's right. You have one of our Gen 1 Notebook Pro 16 models,
Hmm.
and you use it for music and for whatever else you use it for. You
No, it's
and
just specifically music. I won't. I only
specifically.
wanted. That's what I wanted it. I just wanted to be just for that specific thing. And that's sort of how I'm going with everything nowadays. It's like this does this one does that, this one does this. I don't want them all piled up into each other anymore. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to leave it. If I leave it running, it's running because it's running that program alone, that music sequence that is just doing that. That's all I really wanted it to do. Um, my other family members who uh, have computers from you as well, everybody has a very specific thing that they wanted the computers for, and I find that it's working out for each person because, like I said, everybody has a different vision of what they're trying to get done, and so we are quite appreciative in this household.
Welcome. You're welcome. Well, I'm always happy to help. That's kind of what started Creative Devices. Me trying to help people be able to do what I was doing at a much more affordable price point, right? Having
Right.
a desktop replacement laptop that you can run a studio with and take it anywhere in the world with you, that was difficult to find. And I'm happy that we're able to offer these to people. And technology has improved to the point where anyone can have a desktop replacement laptop today, but not everyone can have one custom built for them that's still user upgradable, like you mentioned before. You
Right.
know, I, I don't like being trapped. I don't like limitations. I don't like having to do too many things to do something that I know I could do easier. And that's one of the reasons why I have gone back to Windows as well. Like, I still have my MacBook Pro. I don't turn it on. I think I turned it on. The last time I might have turned it on was the end of last year to try to get something off of it, and I didn't realize how slow it was because I hadn't used it in so long. And I mean, they make good stuff. Again, I don't like how much extra steps I have to take to do something simple and how limited it is. I don't think it's worth the price. It's very expensive. For example, the
Yeah.
MacBook that you were gifted was a $2,000 gift, but the limitations of that device, when I looked at the specs, I said, that's it? That's all you got for $2,000?
Right. That's how I felt too after the fact, because he ordered it for me, and yeah, I'm very grateful, very grateful. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, had I known, I would have asked questions, and before he surprised me. But I would have said, well, I'm going to need for it to do X, Y, Z, because it's going to be able to do this, and this, and everything. But yeah, it surprised me too when I found out, oh, you can't upgrade, you can't this, you can't that. I'm like, what? What good is that? I mean, I use it, don't get me wrong. And then also, technology, I think, for the average person moves way too fast. There's
Mhm.
always a new this, a new that, a new like the average person. Consider myself the average person when it comes to technology. I don't need to learn something new tomorrow. I'm still
Mhm.
trying to grasp something from last week that I still don't know how to do yet. And yet
Mhm.
tomorrow there's going to be a brand new way of this happening, and they're going to move this over here. Leave it alone. Leave it
Mhm.
alone and let us figure out how to do this part first, and stop making it so that you have to. It's like when you go to court. You could represent yourself in court if you know what you're talking about, but they make it so that you don't know what you're talking about and you have to hire a lawyer. But the lawyer's not doing anything more than what you would do for yourself if you understood what they were asking you. But they do it all in legalese so that you don't understand. It's like, yeah, you got to pay him to talk to us for you. And I feel like this is the same thing. I have to call an expert to explain to me why my computer won't to do XYZ when it's like, oh yeah, simple fix. Press this button, and that button, and it'll go right back to what you need for it to do. Like, but really, you know what I'm saying? So
That is so true, and that is one of the reasons why we do what we do here at Creative Devices. We don't try to sell you the latest, most expensive thing because you don't need it. Because, like you said, technology is advancing so quickly.
yeah,
The latest thing, you might get a 10% benefit, right? But for the amount of money that you're paying extra, it's really not worth it. And a
right,
lot of times with something that's new, it's not really fully tested yet. So you're going to buy something, it's going to have these bugs. And
right,
I, I don't want people buying something that's not well tested, and you're going to have issues, and you're going to keep coming back. Hey, why isn't this working? And I don't want that headache. The whole point is to give you something where you're not going to have a headache. You put in whatever programs you want to use, it's going to work. It's designed to work, whether we need to use custom drivers, make sure you have only compatible hardware, whatever it is we have to do to make sure that it works. That's what we did. It works, and it's what you need. You don't need that latest, most expensive high-end CPU or GPU for audio or video. You really don't. They make
Right.
you believe you do because they want you to spend the money for it, but the truth is you don't. We sell you what you need for your task, whether it's audio, video, pictures. It could be schoolwork, it could be business, whatever you use a computer for. Our computers are designed for creative use, so they're powerful enough for creative use, which means they can be used for anything at the most, I should say, reasonable price. But
Oh, no. I appreciate when you came by and you took a look at all of my recording stuff, my audio stuff, and you was like, no, you don't need that. You need to get this, and this is why you need this. No, don't buy that one
Mhm,
right there. Buy this one right here. Because
mhm,
it makes all the difference in the long run, and for what it is that I was gonna do. Like a simple thing, like
right.
a set of headphones. I
Hmm.
wouldn't have known that the headphones that I had here were not for what I actually need the headphones to do. And he's like, no, you
Hmm.
need to get these headphones because and they look identical, but they're not identical. You know what I'm saying? Same company, brand, all of that look exactly the same. It's like you like, but this does something different. Like you're gonna hear it differently because of your vocals or what whatever you were explaining to me,
Right.
even with the microphone situation. Get
Hmm.
this mic versus that mic and for this reason. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like my family we have a saying in my family, or our family motto is let the expert be the expert at what the expert's the expert at. So my little brother, 10 years younger than me, he's an expert at finance. I am not. So I allow my little brother to tell me what I'm supposed to do about money, finance, my bank, my credit score. I don't understand any. That's him. Comes to clothing, music, they all call me. That's what I'm the expert at. You're the expert at what you. That's why I talk to you,
Hmm.
and I really appreciate you getting me set up and getting me straight with all the stuff I got to do and everything. So I literally am about to start taking tutorials on producing my own self, my own, because I know how to make my music, but all those buttons and levers and this and that and I appreciate you
Yeah.
for coming through for that.
Well, the beautiful thing about today, you don't have to have all the outboard gear. You can have everything in digital format in the computer. And now you can take your time learning how to use it. And it's a lot simpler than people think it is. It looks very complicated, but it's a lot simpler. And, I've been there where I've had people sell me stuff that I really didn't need just because they're trying to make a sale. When you go
Right.
to a store or you call up online, anywhere you go, people, they're not there to help you. They're there to sell you something.
That's
You,
right.
you know what I mean? And I've been a victim of that too many times where it's just like, I didn't need this. And it was too late when I found out.
Right.
So my thing is I don't want to do that to other people. I want to help you to understand this is what you need for what you want to do. You don't need that. This is going to work better for you. And you don't have to spend all this money for that when this is really what you need.
Right.
More people should be doing that, you know?
I
But
agree. I agree.
be the change you want to see. That's all I try to do.
You're doing a good job. I told
Thank
you
you.
that from the beginning when you came and told me this is what you were doing, and that's why I'm like, okay, whatever I can do to support, just let me know. So I try to tell anytime somebody says something about a computer, I'm like, oh, you talk to my
Mhm.
boy. Like, you know what I'm saying? 'Cause he has something set up. Like, take a look at it. At least I'm like, the least you can do is go
Mhm.
take a look at it.
Yep.
Don't just dismiss something just because you don't know something about it.
Mhm.
And people should know me by now. If I refer anybody for anything, you might
Mhm.
want to look at it because I don't refer. I Stopped that long time ago. For somebody at this point, take a look at it. That's what I tell folks.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
Now, one of the things I wanted to talk on is your shirt because I have the same one. Thanks to you. Appreciate it.
And I
So,
appreciate you.
so, so tell us about your brand, American Couture.
So, like I said, I am a fashion designer, and the funny part is that I've always known that I was a fashion designer, but I didn't have the support. So for the longest time, I didn't do fashion design, and it just sort of kind of came back around within the past, I say, 10 to 15 years, and everything as something that I'm focused on. Before, I was more
Mm,
focused on other people and other things. Like when you met me, I was editor in chief of Streets Most magazine. No, not Street Most at the time. Did you meet me at Street Most? Um, Entertainment Industry Magazine, which was my magazine. That's the one I put you in.
mhm,
But I was with Streets Most just before that, so I met you
mhm,
around the same time. But I was as editor in chief, I was spending more time on everybody else's stuff and not any on mine. I wasn't
mhm,
sewing. I've been here about 23 years now, but I haven't been sewing all that time or designing all that time. I might have been styling people and all of that, but I wasn't making clothes. And then when I started to make clothes, I wouldn't make them for anybody because I didn't believe in what I was doing and everything.
mhm,
I didn't think it was good enough, even though it has been. I just didn't think it was because I have a standard for myself.
mhm,
So fast forward, people started asking here and there, could I make this? Could I make that? And I started to get a little order here, a little order there, whatever. And now this is pretty much my focus between this and getting my music out. Those are my two main things at this point. And it's so much more about me producing something for myself that I'm happy with and that I can actually sell to the general public versus being afraid of showing people what I know how to do. I'm very self assured at this point of what it is that I
mhm,
do. So now I'm just trying to push everything forward. But here again, fashion, like technology, things move so fast in all of these. Everywhere we are, everything's moving way too fast. So the fashion industry has changed drastically, and I'm not going to say that I haven't been able to keep up with it. However, I am of the old school belief that you need to be educated in what you do and not just jump out there doing stuff without any education. So I found a lot of people do not take the time to educate themselves about an industry that they are trying to place themselves in. If somebody asks me about my background, we'll be talking all day because because we were at the way I came up before internet, before computers, before cell phones. If you said that you are a singer, you had to be able to hit every note because there was no auto tunes. There was nothing that could fix your voice in studio.
mhm,
None of that. If you said you were a photographer, you had to know how to work a manual camera. If you said you're a makeup artist, you actually have to know how to apply makeup and blend makeup, not with a paint gun and just spraying somebody's face like this. I mean, that
mhm,
works too. But back in the day, it was a sponge, some makeup, and your fingers. And you know that that may seem primitive to somebody, but look at the pictures that we have of when people had to do it that way. They look as flawless,
mhm,
if not more flawless back then than they do now with the stuff now.
mhm,
So for me, I had to actually know how to do everything that I said I could do. I had to know how to do it. My producer nowadays, he's only like in his one of the producers. He's like in his 30s. He's always astounded when we record because he's like, I can't believe that you could sing a song in one take. I said, well, back in the day, when you go to the studio, you paid for your time, and your time
mhm,
is 30 minutes or an hour, whatever you can afford. But within that time, you can't make up the song. You can't
mhm,
have a bunch of mistakes because you can't fix it. You have to sing it every time. You have to sing it all the way through each time, all the way through each time. They might be able to punch you in somewhere, but they couldn't fix anything. You still had to sing your note. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
So for him, he's dealt with so many people his age and younger that don't have that type of work ethic, that standard, or that education in terms of not even practicing hard. They show up with no practice, man, and and not understanding their instrument, which may be their voice or an actual instrument, or showing up trying to write in the studio. Who does that? Like, why would you not know your song when you got there? That's how I look at it. Because everybody that I know, they know the music when they show up. They have to, because you may only have 30 minutes exactly before somebody else is coming to the studio right after you, so you have to leave. So for me, it's all about being educated in what I do, knowing my talents, skills, and abilities, and if I am not up to par, I have to be realistic with myself and be like, yeah, I need to wait a little bit on that before I go try to record something or whatever. Other people, they don't do that because they feel like I'll just record whatever and they'll fix it. Same
Mm.
with my clothing. I always say to people, the inside of my clothes should be just as beautiful as the outside. If I make you something custom, you should be able to turn it inside out. And it may look like you could turn it inside out and wear it. That's how well crafted I want it to be, you know. And most people don't do that. They don't do that.
Mm.
So that's
Yeah.
that's where I am.
That's great. Yeah, that level to detail, the attention to detail there is definitely not used everywhere. And people will definitely pay for something like that. Some people don't really care, but for the people who actually care about what they're wearing, you know, it's definitely important. And your clothes definitely speak for themselves.
I appreciate it. I mean, like I said, for me, it was a whole I wasn't even focused on making clothes. And I'll tell you the defining moment that got me off of paying attention to everybody else and then actually focusing on myself and making clothes was my business partner, Anthony. We've been business partners since we met freshman year at Howard. We've been working together on music, managing people, doing all of this, trying to build careers for everybody else. He was staying with me up here in New York, and I was making some slip covers for some chairs. And
Mm.
it took me about 3 days to make these slip covers. But he sat there for 3 days. He didn't say anything. So he just watched me. So when I finally finished them and put them on a chair, he says to
Mm.
me, I did not know that you could sew like that. I said, so like what? He said, if you told me that you had covered these chairs yourself, he said, I wouldn't have believed you had I not sat here and watched you for 3 days. He said, we have wasted 25 years focused on other people. He said, had I known you could do that, he said, we would have been spending 25 years pushing out clothing and furniture stuff and all of that. He said, I didn't know you could do that. I said, I don't, because I never looked at it as something to tell people what I could actually do. It's like, it's just
Mm.
something I do, and I was only doing it from around the house, made the curtains, that type of thing. So he's like, nah, he's like, I'm telling you. He said, you need to focus on you. He said, making clothes only requires the fabric, the machine, and you. You don't have to wait for somebody to show up in the studio for their session and you sitting there waiting and they're late and they got an excuse, baby mama, the kids, the this, the that, or whatever else it is that we've done for other people that has held us back because we're so busy pouring into someone else and not into ourselves. So that's where I'm at this point. American Couture itself, I didn't even name it. I was trying to find a name. And what happened was I worked for this company where I was the only English speaking Black American that worked in the entire place. It was a call center. Everybody else was from all around the world. They all spoke all these languages and, French speaking Africans, Germans, and everybody had a specific clientele that they catered to. My clientele actually were American millionaires, which was very interesting. Side another story. So we sat in cubicles, right? So it was four cubicles together, but there were no walls. So you can literally talk to the three people sitting there with you. But I would sketch the whole time because I only answered the phone when it rang. And millionaires don't call that much. You know what I'm saying? So I'm
Mm.
sitting there sketching, drawing pictures, and African lady who grew up in Paris walked by my desk and she leaned over and she said, "Oh," she said, she said, "This reminds me of when I was home when I grew up in Paris and all the fashion." She said, "I just love your work." She said, "You remind me of a couturier, like an American couturier." And I was like, there it is.
Mm.
The name just it like I'm like it just fell out the sky, and then I changed the C to a K for my initials, Al-Karim,
Mhm.
AK, American Couture. It all just did what it's supposed to do. But the crazy part was I wasn't so sure that I wanted to use the word American. Like for years, it took me the longest time to get right, as they would say, with the use of the word
Mhm.
American because it has such a
Mhm.
negative connotation around the rest of the world. It's great
Mhm.
here. Once you leave here, we're not looked at as the best folks. You know what I'm saying? But I also had to recognize the fact that I am an American. I was born in America. And, my family is indigenous to America. So at the end of the day, for me, I don't think it's so bad. It's like when I was talking to my mom, about how my brand is viewed and how I want to put it out into the world. Like with black people, or people, I'll say black people. With black people, we have to always say something is black. Ebony Magazine, Jet Magazine, Black Enterprise. But Vogue Magazine doesn't say white Vogue because it's implied. People may not think it's implied, but it is. If less than 1% of anything that you show in an 800-page book pertains to people of color, then it is implied that it is for white people per se. So for me, I was wrestling with the whole, oh, do I call my business a black business or just a business or just a this or it was all of that. Even when I was with Street Smokes magazine, they kept calling themselves a underground hip hop magazine. And I kept saying to them, "You are not an underground hip hop magazine. You are just a magazine." I said, "If you want to compete with everything else that's on the stand, you have to look at yourself just like everything else on the stand. If you're saying you're underground, it's a negative connotation to it in a way. You know what I'm saying? You're setting yourself apart, but you're also lowering who you are and everything. But it was nothing low about the magazine. I thought it was done extremely well. And we had a lot of great people that wanted to be in the magazine. We even launched some careers. French Montana used to come in my office literally every day. And he and I have the same name. His name is Kareem. So that's why we were sort of endeared to each other. But he came to I remember coming to my office literally every day was Cocaine City, cocaine, like the name of his brand was Cocaine something. And he kept asking to interview me, but I wouldn't simply because of the name of the thing. I just thought because I had to look out for my brand as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, he was persistent and now where he's everywhere, and
Mhm.
everything. And I'm very proud of him that he stayed consistent to what he was doing and persistent to what he was doing that he got to get to the fame that he was trying to get to and everything. So, but
Mhm.
everybody has their time. I may not think that my time is going to come, but it's going to show up when it's supposed to. I mean, we all want it to happen sooner than maybe it's supposed to because we see
Mhm.
everybody else's success, but we also don't see everybody else's failures. We only see the success. You know,
Mhm.
I tell people all the time, I was in the same class with Sean Combs. We were in the exact same class at Howard. And I look at how his star meteored, became like a meteor and he became hugely famous. But he actually did work very hard. I'm not going to take that part away from him. I'm not going to say I am the biggest fan or anything of that nature. But my thing is, anybody working hard at something that they do, you have to recognize that they did put in the work. Now, some people get lucky. A lot of people do. Some people in places that they are only there by their parents or their husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, or they're tagging along for the ride or whatever the case may be. But a lot of people do put in the actual work that you never, ever, ever see. I you put in the work because I talk to you all the time, and I know
Mhm.
I when you're at work, not at work, you know what I'm saying, and people don't see that part of what you're doing. They just see this part right here that we're looking at, but they don't know about all that other stuff that you and I talk about. I'm trying to bring you along with some things that I'm doing and trying to figure out how do I get creative devices into XYZ or my show over here. Does it make any sense? Can I work with you? I tell people all the time, we are not here by ourselves. We are not on earth by ourselves. We are here to be responsible for our friends, families, and foes at that. But none of us can survive here without people or without another person and everything. So I can make clothes all day, but if nobody buys them or sees them, what have I done?
Mhm.
Nothing. That's how I see it. So yeah, man.
It's very true. It's very true. Um, well, I learned a lot today, about the name American Couture and how it started and all that stuff. That's fantastic. Now that we know how it started, where do you see yourself, all your projects, including your brand, in the future? Let's say anywhere up to the next 5 years.
I see it all over the world, just like any other designer has their stuff all over the world. Now that we have the internet and all of that stuff, like in less than what 3 to 5 seconds, I could be talking to somebody in Japan just by pressing a button.
Hmm.
Before you had to go, like I had a pen pal growing up when I was in junior high school. He lived in Italy. Never talked on the telephone because we couldn't afford to call Italy and he couldn't afford to call America. But we wrote letters back for years, you know what I'm saying? But it would take weeks for those letters to reach one
Hmm.
person to the other. Now I can reach you just like that. And I feel the same way with my brand. Like I have a website, I have landing page, I have, social media and all of that stuff. So if somebody wants to see my stuff, they can see it right away. They don't have to wait or whatever the case may be. And I feel like because we're at that point, if I set up my marketing and promotions and all of that the way it should be set up, or if I get that one person that wears something of mine and all of a sudden everybody wants it, then there you are. I don't know how it will happen or not happen for me, but I get up every day with the intention of something happening and everything, and I wake up with purpose. I think a lot of people think it's just supposed to fall out of the sky and they don't have to do anything for it. You have to get up and do you have to do something every day if you want anything to actually happen for you. It does not just fall out of the sky, you know. And I find a
Hmm.
lot of young people, they don't understand that you have to work. Like if you call me today, you in particular, and said, "Listen, I need some assistance. I need somebody to be a personal assistant to me to help me XYZ." I personally would come work for you, even though I'm the CEO of my own company. Reason being, all of my friends are CEOs, and I feel like you wouldn't be able to hire an 18-year-old to be your personal assistant simply because they would not know what to do. They have to already understand what it takes to be you in order to do anything for you. And that's what I find with people that try to assist me. If you do not understand, um, you know, how to organize something administratively or how to go about cataloging all of this fabric in the house or coming up with ways to do things, I find that a lot of people do not know how to actually do anything without someone actually telling them how to do. Before all of this, we had to figure out how to do things. I've been fortunate in that I've worked for the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the United States Small Business Administration, Johns Hopkins University, Microsoft's Law Department, Benetton, Hex, Macy's, of so many little boutiques all through Georgetown and DC, BET. I constantly have had jobs, sometimes two jobs at one time. You know what I'm saying? Constantly learning stuff in the realm that I want to be in. Some of those jobs came through a temp agency, but every job that I had through the temp agency was me as an executive administrative assistant to the president or the vice president of the company that I was working for. So I got to see how a business was run versus just sort of kind of being there, being a secretary or whatever the case may be. So when I stopped doing that type of stuff and I would have clients come to me and ask me to help them with their business, first thing I would say to them, please don't make me fire you from your own company. And people would laugh. And I was like, you're laughing. I said, but I'm actually being very serious. It takes me probably about 2 to 6 weeks to learn how your entire company works because you're asking me to organize it. Once you're in any job position, you will learn that job within about 2 weeks because it's same thing over and over, really. A couple of variations here and there, but between 2 and 6 weeks, you should be an expert at what you're doing because that's all you're doing. You know, me helping somebody formulate an entire business, I've learned how to do so many different types of businesses. I can open up all types of stuff, but I stick to the stuff that I love to do, not the stuff that I know how to. I know how to do a lot of stuff. I just don't want to do it. Like most people don't even know I know how to drive a car because they've never seen me drive, and I don't like driving. I know how. I've been driving since I was 16 years old. We all had to back in down south. But here, it's not necessary. I live in New York. Let somebody else chauffeur me around. That's the job they like to drive. Let them drive. You know what I'm saying? So here again, letting the expert be the expert. But yeah, man, it's everybody needs to figure out what they love. I tell all my God kids, don't just pick something because it pays a lot of money. Figure out what you love to do because most of them have no clue what they want to do. I said, well, what do you love doing? It could be something random. You could be like, I love playing video games all day. Okay, that's a job. That's a job. There's so many jobs in what you just said, but you have to figure out how do you get paid from doing that all day long? You know what I'm saying? You can get paid for choosing music. There are companies there you can get paid for listening to music all day. Because there's an agency that listens to music to see if somebody stole music from an artist.
Yeah.
It's always you got to think larger than just, oh, I'm just trying to get paid. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's sort of like where I am in life. I try to give the best advice I can to these young people coming up, trying to find people, like you. Like I feel like once you've reached a certain level in your life in particular, if you look around you, you're going to see that everybody else around you are on that particular level. All of my friends are like you. All of my friends are you, basically. You know what I'm saying? They all own something. They may work somewhere, maybe, but they all own something they're of their own that they're working on
Mm-hmm.
so that they don't have to work for anybody if they don't want to and everything. So I looked up and realized that, oh, pretty much all of my close friends are literally me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think a lot of people understand when they lose people or get rid of people that those people were not on your level and they're not going to be on your level or they haven't reached your level yet. So to lose people that you thought were friends, you're just getting rid of some dead weight. And I've done that recently. I literally stopped talking to two people that I've talked to all the time. One I've been talking to for over 20 years, but I decided I didn't want to talk to him anymore. And when I did that, I saw things open up for me that I didn't realize were closed
Mm-hmm.
because I was taking up space around me with unnecessary stuff, you know? And I don't have any ill feeling towards whomever or whatever, but I had to realize that your life is moving in the direction you want it to, but mine is stagnant. And you're part of the reason that I'm being stagnated. So let me remove whatever's blocking me from moving forward. And when I did that, some things opened up that I didn't realize were going to open up.
Yeah. I've had to let go of some people that I've known a long time too. It's always a difficult thing,
It
but
is.
sometimes there's just no way around it. You know, you can't. You know that saying, it's always easier for someone to pull you down than it is for you to pull them up. And
Mhm.
it is very true.
Yeah, yeah. My mother told me a long time ago, she said, stop trying to pull people up to your level. She said, they're not meant to be there. She said, you cannot bring somebody up to where you are. You just can't if they're not meant to be there and everything. So I've learned that's been a very hard and long lesson for me to learn because I didn't realize that people were not up to, my level because I try to give everybody a fair chance. I'm open and, whatever, but
Mm,
you just can't open yourself up to just allowing people just to be around you just because in this day and age we
mhm.
have too much at stake, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't want to dwell too much on this unhappy topic,
I don't
unfortunately.
think it's
But
unhappy. I don't think it's unhappy at all. We're moving forward.
yeah, that's true. Like you said, always find the positive, even in the negative.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's
And the
right.
thing is, you have to realize that these are important conversations. If you and I don't have this conversation for other people to actually hear and see, then somebody's not going to ever get it. It took me decades to get to certain places because nobody ever directed me around the pitfalls and the things that were holding me back from stuff. Now what I try to do is to stop somebody who is 15, 16, or 17 from falling into a pitfall by saying, yeah, go this way because I've already taken that path, and that's not the path that you want to take because you don't know any better. I'm telling you right now, I know some better, and that's not what you want to do. So
Yeah,
I don't see this any conversation that you have. It's not negative. Somebody needs to hear what you and I have to say. They just don't
yeah,
realize they need to hear it.
yeah. There's it's a beautiful thing about conversation, and it's always important to learn from other people's experiences.
It
Making
is
your own are crucial, but if you can learn from other people's experiences and prevent you from making negative ones, that's a very important lesson to learn.
very much so. Very much
Yeah.
so.
I realize this whole time I've been asking you all these questions. Would you happen to have anything that you want to ask me?
Are you happy?
For the most part, for the most part, we could always feel happier. There's always something that we believe would make us happier. But for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, I have a roof over my head. I have food. You know, I'm not. I'm in a better situation than sadly some other people that are homeless and starving. So I am very grateful for what I have.
I ask people that question often because I think a lot of people never stop to think about their happiness. And when I ask that question, what I hear in my head is Anita Baker when in her song when she says, "Are you happy now with your life?" That always rings in my head. That one little statement because I feel like nobody they never think about that. Very
Mm,
simply, are you happy? And if you can identify whether you are or are not, then if it's an are you're not happy, then you can start to fix stuff. But if you never question whether you are or are not, then you just sort of kind of here. You're just sort of kind of floating in the air, whatever, whatever, whatever. I said to my mother one day, I had gone home to visit for a couple of days, and I realized that while I was home, everybody complained. My dad complained. My mom complained. My grandma, my brother, my stepdad,
mhm.
everybody was complaining. And I'm like, I said to myself, what are they complaining about? Like, to me, everything was just so, they were shallow complaints, all shallow. They meant nothing, really. And so when I got back home here to New York, I said to um, Brother D, my business partner, I said, D, I said, do I complain too much? He said, what are you talking about? I said, I don't know. I said, I went home and everybody was complaining. I just want to make sure that in the environment that we are in, I'm not always complaining because I don't understand what my family has to complain about. And when I called
Mm-hmm.
my mother once I got back home and I said to her, realize y'all complain all the time? She said, what? I said, I was home with y'all and all y'all did was complain the whole time. I said, but my thing is, I want you to look around at what y'all have. I said, y'all all live together, which I think is phenomenal that my brother can make a place for my parents, my grandmother, and his family under one roof. That's
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal for me. And everybody has their own space. They're not all piled up on top of each other.
Right.
Same thing with my dad. My dad has a great place to live, wonderful house, but like it's like everything's immaculate and clean, and like he's living well. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is, I said to my mother, I was like, "What do y'all have to complain about?" And she paused in the conversation. She said, "You know what?" She said, "You are exactly right." I said, "I know." I said we don't think enough about all the good, wonderful things. Like y'all are all there. Like I feel like I'm so fortunate that throughout COVID, my family was literally unscathed, literally on both sides, all sides of however it goes. We might have lost a couple of distant cousins or something like that, but my immediate family, both my grandmothers are in their 90s. You know what I'm saying? Uncles, aunts, cousins, everybody's pretty much okay. You know, and I'm very thankful that that was the case because it didn't have to be and everything. And I just wanted to call attention to that for them is that look at all the wonderful stuff that the family does have, that you have access to that and how we've grown as a family. I remember not having,
Mm-hmm.
and now y'all don't really, we still building and everything, but we not like we were, like you said, not like you were, you're moving forward. So that's sort of like how I try to take each day. It's hard to wake up every morning cheerful. My father says to me, "How do you do that?" I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, Dad. He's like, every time I tell you, he's like, "You're just so cheerful." I said, "It's not easy." I said, "I make an effort. You have to make the effort." You know what I'm saying? And yeah, man, it's like this is why like I text you all the time, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
Always
Do.
send a little checking in, but I do that with a lot of people on a daily basis. I might do yours like maybe once a week, but there's some people I call literally every day I get up. I call and be like, "Okay, you okay? You all right? I'm just checking that you're there and everything," because we need to do that for one another as much as we can.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me. I've been so busy, I haven't really checked in on a lot of people. And everyone that's watching this, I apologize. And I tell people all the time, don't wait for me to reach out to you. Reach out to me. I will reply.
I do have another question for you.
Okay.
So, what do you need with your I'm to be very specific though. What do
Mhm.
you need in terms of creative devices? What does creative devices need?
That is a good question.
I know. All I ask are good questions.
um, Maybe what Creative Devices needs for some other people is different from what I think it needs. And the reason I say this is because I was recently having a discussion with some partners about changing the logo. Like you see this logo here, the KD.
Right.
My little brother designed this logo. He did it from scratch. It's not a font. I wanted something that was basic, that looked familiar, but that no one else had and couldn't
Got
copy. So when you see it, it's Creative Devices because only us has this KD. Right? Wanted something that was synonymous with Creative Devices. It wasn't the ideal image that I had in my mind, but at the time when we had to launch, it was the best one of the options that we had. So we went with that. And I'm thinking logos evolve over time.
they
Every
do.
logo evolves, right?
They do.
So I'm like, it'll change. We'll find something better down the line. We've been for the last month going through variations of this KD, even thinking about not using the KD, just using some sort of insignia or logo or whatever. And everything that people bring to me, I hate it.
Okay.
Like it's horrible.
You didn't
And I'm
ask me to
thinking
do a
to,
logo for you.
huh?
You don't know how to design logos? Sales probably one.
I'm not a designer. I'm not a designer. And
No,
you know,
I design logos. You've never asked me. I didn't know. I
oh
mean, you mentioned it that you were
yeah.
going to be changing the logo, but I didn't know you were going outside looking for someone to do. I just figured you something that you're doing yourself. But I might
No,
try
it's my partners took it upon themselves,
to do it.
and we asked a couple people to go back and forth to see what they can come up with. But I would like to see what you come up with as well. Me personally, again, I know it's not, the most ideal logo. Uh, but I also don't want anything that's gimmicky. Like I look at a lot of other people's logos and they look like a gimmick. I don't like gimmicks. I
Yeah,
like straightforward, simple to the point. I want I want something that looks familiar, but it's not what everyone else is using, right? And it's difficult to find that. And so far, everything that have they've brought to me, whether it was somewhat traditional or modern looking, none of it looked better than this KD that my brother made. And I'm thinking, how could my brother make something that looks better than what all of these other people are showing me? And he's not a professional.
because your brother knows you as a person. See, what the thing about logos that I try to explain to people is that logos are personal. Even if it's for a
Mhm.
company, it's still personal. So you have
Yeah.
to ask questions. Okay, why are you naming it? Why are you naming the company this? What does it mean to you? What colors come to mind when you think about your business? Like, do you want metals, something softer, gold,
Hmm.
silver, white, black? Are you basic? Do you want bright colors? There's a lot of questions to ask somebody about a logo, a potential logo. But the
Hmm.
thing is, it has to be grounded in a particular meaning, because at some point somebody is going to ask you about your logo, especially if you
Hmm.
become as successful as you want to. When people interview you, the first thing they're going to ask about is the logo. People ask somebody about
Hmm.
the Nike swoosh or the this or the that. You know what I'm saying? But it
Hmm.
even with American Couture, I'm about to change logos or add a logo for a different part of my brand that's specifically for
Hmm.
sportswear and everything, because I don't feel like this accurately reflects sportswear for me in terms of how
Hmm.
I want the brand to be seen. But
Hmm.
also color makes a difference and everything. I created a whole font for myself because that's what's going towards the sportswear stuff. Like you said, a whole handmade. Nobody else has this. You ain't gonna find it nowhere. I'm working on that now. So I would say to you, your brother did what he did because your brother is your brother. He knows you. He partly is you. So you know what I'm saying? So it's more so it's it's that being familiar versus meeting a person that you don't know, sitting out in a meeting. It's like, yeah, we can do a logo for you. But you don't know anything about me. How you gonna do a logo if you don't know anything about me? It's like when I do makeup. When I used to do makeup for people, the first thing, or makeup in a photo shoot, or basically a photo shoot. So if I just met you that morning, before I touched you or anything, first thing I say to you is, "How's your day going? What you do this morning?" I don't know. I need for you to relax. I need for you to become familiar with me. Tell me about what you did with your kids this morning before you came to the shoot. You know what I'm saying? Or what did you and your husband do last night? Or you and your wife do last night? Did y'all go out to eat? And or what do you do for fun? Like what's your hobby? Or if I'm going to work with someone's child, before I photograph them, I babysit without the parent. Because the thing is, that's a little human being. So I need for that little human being to relate to me and not to be, all over the place because their parents are in the room, or not listening because your parents aren't in the room or whatever. But I need for them to be as comfortable with me as they would be with one of their little friends or whatever the case may be, so that when I shoot them, you get these extraordinary pictures because I'm shooting someone that I know. I know about their toys or their Barbies or their, whatever the case may be. It's the same thing here. Your brother knows you.
Right.
That's why that logo ended up where it did versus everything else you're being bought you don't like. You're not going to like it because the person or whoever's doing it hasn't taken one moment to get to know you as the person that established this company.
Well,
That's what I've learned.
the thing is, branding is about the company and it's not about particularly what I will want or what I like. And I understand that, right? At the end of the day, I look at anything as a musician, even if I'm going to make some music or if you're going to make some clothes that you know other people are going to like, that you want them to buy, you can't make something that you dislike just because you think someone else is going to like it.
Right.
I
That's a fact.
can't stand, yeah, I can't stand to look at a logo that you say this is what the logo should be. If I can't stand looking at it, I don't care if anyone else likes it. I don't
I
want to see it,
I
you
agree.
know? And the thing with me is we're not selling logos. We're
Right.
selling computers.
Right.
And unlike other brands, our logo isn't plastered all over the device. So you're buying it with no logo or you're putting your own logo on it. So the logo is not a deal breaker to me,
Right.
right? We've adjusted the website. We're still adjusting the website. We're gonna have a new website coming soon. There's so many variables involved in uh everything that I personally don't think that the logo is that big of a deal. I'm still open to seeing what other people have. If I see something that looks good and I'm saying, you know what, that's better, we should go with that, I'm okay with that. As long, and even if I don't really like it, as long as I don't hate it, if if I do believe that it is better, then let's go with that. Because I'm all about what's best for the company, just like what's best for the music and stuff like that. It's not about me. But at the same time, I can't cringe when I look at it. I
Yeah.
don't want anything that's gimmicky or too modern or too crazy to try to shock people. I don't care about that sort of thing. I want it simple and to the point because that's all it needs to be. KD Creative Devices. It doesn't need to be any more difficult than that.
Okay.
So, but we'll see. It's still something we're working on. Now that we're talking about this, this is very good that we discussed it here now. Everyone watching this, please, I want your honest opinion on this KD logo. What do you think about the KD logo? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Should we change it? Should we keep it? Tell us what you think in the comments below. If you think you can do a better version of this KD logo,
Right.
let us
Send it
know.
in. Send it in.
Maybe
Maybe let's
maybe
do a
our new
contest.
logo, yeah, maybe our new logo will be something that's designed by you if Al-Karim doesn't knock it out the park first.
Listen, I'll tell you this much though. The letter K is probably one of the hardest letters to use in terms
Hmm.
of in font wise or trying to turn it into something. I mean,
Hmm.
K is part of my name. I've always
Hmm.
had a very hard time trying to design with that particular letter. Everything else sort of kind of works itself out. That
Hmm.
letter's hard. Hard, hard,
Yes,
hard. So, but no,
very.
I worked on something. I didn't know that you actually was trying to replace it, but I'll definitely keep that in mind. Because for me, how the logos happen for me when I design them is that when it happens, it happens. Like you know it when you see it, type thing. It's like you can't explain certain things to people. It's like no, I'll know it when I see it. Because I've done logos
Right.
like that. It's like yeah, something's not quite right. Something's not. And then as soon as you hit it, it's like that's it. I know that's
Hmm.
it. You know.
Hmm.
So I get you. I get you. I work on something.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. Listen, I appreciate everything, bro. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and have this conversation with me.
Anytime.
I know you're a busy man.
You too. We
Yeah,
we've been like this trying to get it together, but we're there. We're there. I mean, you can hit me up anytime if you want to do some interviews or talk about some other stuff or whatever the case may be. I'm always available for you. Don't even don't even think that I'm not available. It's just been a
I
lot
appreciate
going
it.
on just recently. That's all.
Yes, and shout out to Brother D. Let him know that we're here. We're thinking about him, and hopefully we can get him on in a future podcast.
Okay. I'm gonna say okay. He don't like being interviewed, and he don't. I'm telling you, he don't like getting in front of no camera for nothing. But the
I
thing is,
understand.
look, you might be able to do a whole interview with him without ever seeing his face, though. He might do something like that. He might do something like that and everything.
We'll see what we can get done. We'll see what we can get done.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we'll definitely talk more about the logo and everything else. We talk all the time, like you said. But again,
Yeah.
thank you for taking the time and sharing your story and all the knowledge that you shared with everyone watching this video.
Mm-hmm.
And enjoy the rest of your day, bro. I'll talk to you later.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at that.
I snatched it from Gabriel because you gave me
Okay.
Gabriel's. I snatched it from
Right,
him.
right.
I like, I ain't getting no hat. I don't even understand why you got a hat and everything.
Wow.
When he comes here, he has it when he's here.
Okay. Well, we gotta get you a hat. We got. I don't know if you want my little flimsy stuff with the fine stuff that you make.
Okay, I will say this much: I don't wear hats because for whatever reason, I get headaches. So
Okay.
I'm not a hat person. But sweatshirts, t-shirts, I
Okay.
wear. Yeah, and if you need for me to sit down and we collaborate on some designs for merchandise for you, I'm available.
Okay.
Okay.
I might need you to model something for me.
Okay.
You know.
All right.
You do. How about we do something like this? You do the creative devices. I'll do the American Couture.
We
We'll
can do
take
that.
some pictures and it's just listen. It's
We can do
nothing
that.
but a. We'll make it happen. We'll make it
Cross
happen.
promotion is always good. Cross
Beautiful.
promotion is always good.
All right, bro. Thanks again.
You're very welcome. Like I said, anytime, just let me know.
We'll do. All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Peace, brother.
Peace, bro.